quiero asegurarme que lo usamos bien. Mi nombre es Lourdes Montalvo, yo soy asistente ejecutiva de la Secretaria del Estado de Connecticut, directora de Asuntos al Elector y la Comunidad del Estado de Connecticut. También soy intérprete del gobernador y de todos los que están en las oficinas más altas del Estado de Connecticut. Soy una oriunda de Sabana Grande, Puerto Rico. Yo nací en el campo, en Puerto Rico.
De la pica.
Bueno, de la pica, mire para allá. Pues yo soy del barrio Rincón Molina, ahí cerquitita. Y me imagino que si nos ponemos a hablar de muchísimas cosas que tienen que ver con nosotros, hasta sabe Dios si nos conocemos, porque mis abuelos era una persona que le gustaba negociar con caballos y otras cosas, y por muchísimos años tuvimos lo que se llaman Plaza de Caballos en Puerto Rico. Conozco muchísima gente, no solamente aquí y allá. Desde pequeña me enseñaron que era parte de nuestro desayuno, de nuestro almuerzo, de nuestra comida, de nuestros sueños, envolvernos y hablar de la política, de lo que estaba sucediendo en Puerto Rico. Como persona que visita 169 pueblos en Connecticut, yo le digo una cosa, a mí me está tan grande el hecho de que venimos aquí y no nos envolvemos, venimos aquí y tenemos tanto que decir, tenemos tanto que aportar, tenemos tanto que hacer, pero ¿dónde estamos? Hablamos de que tenemos que inscribir más gente para votar. Yo les voy a decir una cosa. Hay muchísimos inscritos para votar. Si nos ponemos a ver en realidad, la cantidad de personas que no están inscritas para votar es una minoría. Número uno, porque a lo mejor han tenido algún problema legal que le ha quitado ese derecho. Número dos, porque muchas veces vienen aquí y no reciben la información. Así es que yo le voy a pedir a cada uno de ustedes que no importa en qué estado, en qué ciudad, donde ustedes vivan, por favor, inscriban por lo menos 5 personas, ¿ok? El día de las elecciones asegúrense que por lo menos 10 personas de las que ustedes conocen salen a votar y que esas 10 personas, cada uno de ellos, llame a 10 personas que ellos conocen y van a ver cómo vamos a hacer la diferencia. Y esto va a ser, vamos aquí a hacer no solamente las grandes masas que somos, no solamente el grupo que nos buscan cuando hay una elección, sino también vamos a ser el grupo que pueda hacer la diferencia, no solamente en una elección presidencial, pero en todas las elecciones. Bueno, ya está la representante González aquí, pues le voy a dejar que el panel aquí se presente. Cada uno tiene, me dijeron, entre 3 a 5 minutos para hacer una breve presentación, ¿ok? Entonces, y después se va a abrir la pregunta. Le voy a pedir que por favor a las personas que se mantengan haciendo preguntas que sean sin mucho testimonio, sin mucha palabra, please. So for those folks that just arrived, I don't know if everybody speaks Spanish or English or Spanglish, whatever, but let's join. So I'm going to ask you to please write the question down, okay? Abstain from making any other comments or anything else, because we don't have a lot of time and I would like to have everything to be covered. Now, I'm also going to ask from one of the youth here, maybe you down here, to take some notes, so that way at the end I can report back, okay? So, if you have something? Okay, so let's start here with, we have Jossie Valentin, City Councilor Ward 4, Holyoke, Massachusetts. So,
thank you. Gracias, Lourdes, y buenos días. I guess I'll speak in, well, let me just ask. ¿Hay alguien que no habla inglés? Okay. Who doesn't speak Spanish? It's like me. Okay. All right. So we'll try to do some Spanglish. That'll probably work for most people. First of all, welcome to Holyoke. This is city where I live. So thank you all for taking the time on a beautiful sunny Saturday to come out and join us for this summit. For the folks that are at the door, if you want to come in, there's some space along the wall over here. It's great that so many of you were interested in this panel regarding political representation in New England. So when I think about political representation, a couple of things. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and how I got here to this role. I'm originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and in 1990, actually I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. There's a couple of people here from Bridgeport. Just the only reason I was born there was because my mother was going to grad school, and that's where I was born. So I was there until the age of 7, and at the age of 7, went to Puerto Rico and stayed there until the age of 21. So 18 years ago, I moved to Massachusetts to go to grad school and never left. So you do the math, I'm 39. I'll be 40 in December. And so what I can tell you about myself is that I'm in my second term as a city councilor here in Holyoke. I decided to run because I had been involved as a volunteer for a mayoral campaign here in Holyoke, and got more and more interested in local municipal government, and felt that there's this phrase that if you're not at the table, you may be on the menu. And so basically, when you look at the city of Holyoke, it's about 40,000 residents, and 50% of that is Latino, mostly Puerto Rican. However, when you look at the government officials, or the elected officials, we have a mayor who you all met this morning. He welcomed you. He's known as El Colorado among the Puerto Ricans. And even though Alex is very much fluent in Spanish, he is not of Latino descent. And when you look at our city council, which for some of you, depending on your state and your city, it may be aldermen. For us, it's city councilors, which I like much better because it's gender neutral. And for us, we have 15, and of those 15, 4 of us are Puerto Rican. So when you do the math on that, and you look at the fact that there's 20,000 Puerto Ricans in the city of Holyoke, and only 4 of the 15 city councilors are Puerto Rican, you have an issue of political representation when it comes to our background as Latinos. So I decided to run for the first time in 2013. Our terms are 2 years here. And I decided to run not only as a Puerto Riqueña, but also as an openly gay candidate. And that to me was very important because it's a big part of my identity, but it's also important when you're having a conversation about politics in a conservative city for the most part, and how that may impact your electability and all these other pieces. So thankful to say I was elected in 2013 for my first term. That was with 74% of the vote. And then I won my re-election last year with 80% of the vote. I've always had conservative people run against me, and that doesn't seem to work in my ward, so I'm grateful for that. And it's been an absolute pleasure to get to really know folks like Carlos and Adam, who are both in Springfield, but when we look at our cities, you know, we're all in the same boat in terms of the regional approach that we can have. So it's an honor to be here today. I'm looking forward to your questions, and again, just very privileged to be in the city of Holyoke as an elected official, representing both my Puerto Rican identity as well as my gay identity, and having that at the forefront of who I am today. Thank you.
City Council, Jossie. And now we have Luis Aponte, City Council President from Providence, Rhode Island.
Thank you. Good morning. It is very nice to be here with amongst so many accomplished and inspiring people. My name is Luis Aponte. I have the distinct privilege of being the president of the Providence City Council. I bring you greetings from our capital city in the state of Rhode Island. I bring you the greetings of our Secretary of State, Nelly Gorbea, the only Puerto Rican statewide elected official in the entire New England region. She could not be here with us today, but she asked me to send you her greetings. I have to tell you all, I love local politics. I love local elections. I love being connected to a community. It is incredibly frustrating, annoying, heartbreaking work, but I think that I have absolutely the best job in the world. At the local level, for me, is where our challenges are most closely confronted. It is where the evidence of our work is most visible. It is where we can experiment, be creative, take on challenges, and as we've seen over the last 8 years, we cannot count on the federal government to be the source for ideas and change that we need in our communities. I was elected for the first time in 1998. I have served the city council since then. This last term, I have had the privilege and honor of leading a group of 15 very different, very inspired, very hardworking city councilors. In our city, it is the capital city of Providence. We have a strong mayor form of government. We have 15 members of the city council, all elected by district. It is the largest, our capital city is the largest city in the state. It is the only real urban center, though some may argue with me about that point. But there is a certain uniqueness to being the largest city in the smallest state. I have the distinct privilege. I was born in Lourdes, Puerto Rico. I grew up in Brooklyn. I'm still adjusting all these years later to being a Yankee fan in Red Sox country.
No.
But it is, I think at some point after 30 some odd years of living in Rhode Island, they'll allow me to apply for some sort of residency or citizenship or amnesty, if you will. This to me is very important because I still have many, many members of my immediate family in Puerto Rico. Over the course of the summer, I had to travel to Puerto Rico with my mom, who now lives in Florida, to convince my uncle to move with her to Florida because many of the doctors that he needed to see were no longer there, were no longer practicing. His cardiologist, his oncologist, his surgeon had closed up shop and moved stateside to Atlanta and Houston and Florida. So it strikes a very particular chord with me because my uncle, after he left Patterson, New Jersey, said, yo no vengo para atrás, yo me voy para Puerto Rico y ahí duro el resto de mi vida. And this crisis has made it impossible for him to fulfill that. One of the panelists in the first session said something that is one of my credos. We think globally, but we act locally. And I think that getting local political participation from folks and getting the ability to make decisions locally is where we can begin the change. I have a very unique situation. The majority of my district is Latino, but they're not Puerto Rican. I represent a very large community of Dominican Americans and recently arrived Dominicans who still see me as un hermano, and we keep working together. But our realities are not that much different, both here and in our home countries. So, I could talk all day, but they're telling me I have 30 seconds. I really look forward to having an opportunity to engage in how we can work locally to begin to resolve and approach some of the challenges que nuestros abuelos, tíos, primos y hermanas confrontan diariamente en nuestra isla.
Thank you, Aponte. I forgot to tell you more, like, we're going to be holding this out here, letting you know in how 30 seconds.
Homeboy was
so
good. He was like,
we can stay on task.
Politicians never overtalk.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the folks here are going to remember the lady that didn't keep this on task, and they went late for lunch.
I got it. Okay.
So,
No, we can't go late
all
for
right,
lunch.
and now it is for me a great honor. And I said a great honor because if someone have opened the doors for a lot of Puerto Ricanos and Latinos and Caribbeans and every other brother and sister that speaks Spanish, Spanish in the state of Connecticut. She's like, and I know she's gonna kill me when I say this, but she is like our own dinosaur of politics in Connecticut. That's Minnie Gonzalez.
Yeah.
So, State Representative Minnie Gonzalez, she is
Thank you very much. And when she said dinosaur, I will say that the lobbies in Connecticut, they call me a pit bull. So, so I'm saying there. Right. But here saying about my friend here from Lourdes, we kind of neighbors because I'm from Adjuntas. So este es de los leche de pote.
Leche in pote.
Okay. That's what they said, right. But my name is Minnie Gonzalez. I was born in Puerto Rico. I was born in Aponte, a small town that at that time was like maybe 9,000 people. I finished high school. I moved to New Jersey, and then from New Jersey, I had my two kids. Went back to Puerto Rico. I have my third son over there. Rest in peace. Came back and got involved. I started in a program they used to call AHOP. It was like a after-school program. And going to that program, I met a guy that decided to run for city council, and his name is Eugenio Caro. He's not here, but I know he's here in the building. Okay. So I met him when he was looking for support. He was running for city council, and I was involved in Puerto Rico with my mother, running after her with all the meetings and stuff, but never here. So when I met him, we got involved, and my other half that is in the back at that time, we got very involved. We got involved in his campaign, and we helped get him elected. And after that, we always behind the doors helping people getting elected. When I came to Connecticut, I was positive in cancer, and I came here looking for a better life for me and my kids, and a better health. I didn't have no insurance, no health insurance in Puerto Rico, and that's why I decided to move here. I came here, and I end up, and very proudly to say that I end up on the lines of welfare. I was there with my kids. I know that the system was there for those who, really need the system. So I end up in the line of welfare. Not happy with that, but didn't have no money. That was the only choice at that time. I got involved. I got surgery. It didn't work. A month later, I had to go back. It took a long time for me to recover. But after that, that's when I start taking my kid to school, and that's when I met the gentleman back there in Rico, going to a program, after school program. And after that, since then, I've been involved in every single campaign. I don't know, whatever you have, a Puerto Rican, I'm there. We elect our first state representative, a Puerto Rican state representative in my district. And after that, he decided to step down and go to, he went to New York. We elect another Puerto Rican. And, well, things didn't work out because even in our own community, we got Puerto Ricans. Did they get elected? And sometimes they forgot where they came from. Hallelujah. That always happened, and then we have to look for that. Not because we say, oh, he is Puerto Rican, we're going to vote for him because he's Puerto Rican or her. Sometimes we make mistakes. Amen. Now, we challenged her, I got elected, and honestly, it was a lot of people that were surprised that I got elected because I got a big mouth, that's one. The political machine didn't want me at all because this. And with no money, I got elected, and it was the fight. It was the best campaign, the best Anglo campaign people running the other side with a lot of money. I didn't have no money. And it was hard. And I remember the day of the election, I called my husband and I said, hey, this is the building, the senior building that I've been working, for many years. I'm gonna get killed. We don't have no money, we don't have no transportation. Hey, and he said, well, guess what? That's all we got. You're gonna work for yourself, whatever you got, because that's all we have. Oh my God. I said, okay. So at the end of the election, I got elected. And I think that a lot of people were surprised. The Anglo community, they were surprised saying, how she got elected? Well, guess what? I got elected I ran to every single apartment, every single house, every single senior. I went door knocking. I talked to them. And I'm going to tell you a story and I have a few minutes, but I remember that I went to a house and I knocked the door. The lady came out. She said, come in. Yes, we went in. I was with a friend of mine. And I said, I'm running for state rep and I'm checking on the list and I know that you're not registered. Can you allow us to register? She said, yeah, no problem. So I did a couple of registrations and then when I was almost finished, somebody came in, a young girl. And she said, the mother looked around and she said, listen, they are here, to register all of us and you're not registered. And we were the one in our community to start the loudspeakers. Like in Puerto Rico, we start the loudspeakers in Connecticut. So we have a guy going around the district with the loudspeakers. Minnie Gonzalez, Minnie Gonzalez, Minnie Gonzalez. So the girl said, well, I don't know nothing about politics. The only thing that I know is the loudspeakers every day, Minnie Gonzalez, Minnie Gonzalez, Minnie Gonzalez. I go to bed with that. I woke up with that. And I don't know if she's a man or female. So the mother tried to stop her, like, shut up. But she couldn't. And then in the end, I looked at her and I said, nice to meet you, Minnie Gonzalez. She was like, so let me tell you that it's one of the topics that we're going to talk about that today, and that's why I bring this up, because at the end of the day, I didn't have no money. To run a campaign in my district when we have a fight is like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And we have only 22,000 people. But at that one was a fight, I'm telling you, it was a fight. We have $30,000. And that day, like around 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I passed by the house because that house or that family, it was in front of one of the schools. And I saw all these people with my signs and T-shirts and music, all the boricuas cantando la bamba and all of that. And I said, what is that? And I said, oh my God, it looks like a headquarters. But then I looked and I said, it looked like my headquarters. What is this? It was the people that I motivate that during that campaign, door knocking, talking to people, letting them know what is so important to register to vote. I got elected at the end of 1996, election 1996. I start 1997. I told my husband my first month, I said, I don't think that I'm going to be here more than one term. The building, everything that scares me. And he said, really scares you? And I said, well, I don't know, sometimes I think that I don't belong in that building. Well, guess what? 20 years now. And I'm going now for the 20th.
Thank you so much for being here. And at the end, I will ensure that I will give you guys an extra minute and a half. Okay. Thank you so much. And now we have with us, let's see. I hate when this thing prints like this. Carlos Gonzalez. He is Springfield State Representative. So I'm going to leave you with Carlos Gonzalez, State Representative. And I always love to say, you know what, we have more state reps across the country that we can think of. State Representative Carlos Gonzalez.
Muchas gracias y bienvenido, everybody. It's un placer estar aquí con ustedes. It's a pleasure to be here. I am the product of a woman that was an accountant. She'd never received a diploma because she only attended to the 3rd year of school. But she got her studies from taking a welfare check and be able to take care of 6 kids and adopting another kid. And we all became very successful. And success to her didn't mean to have 2 or 3, 5 houses. It means just to get an education. And that was the key to success. And all my brothers, thank God, have been successful in her eyes. And I know she's always with us up there in the sky. So many years ago, here in the city of Holyoke, where we lived after we came from New York, and I was born in New York, she was one of the first folks to be selected to participate in the elections as an election worker. And when she showed up with her accent, and my mom is dark-skinned, she was told, we don't have niggers here. She went to City Hall, and the mayor then walked with her back to the poll, kicked out the lady that was the director of the poll workers, and she became the poll worker, not knowing ever how to run. She became the poll director. She was very active in the church. She was very active in the community. And again, that was spearheaded why I'm here today. I was elected 2 years ago to the State House of Representatives. $52,000 was used against me. I spent $6,000, but just like Minnie, you knock on doors, you talk to the people, and you make it happen. And that's the key to success. I speak from my heart, hablo con el corazón, and whether I agree with you or I don't, I respect you. And if you challenge me, bring it on. You know? So the reality is that after going to school, being a social worker, leaving there, starting a radio station, which is La Bomba now, and a different signal from Hartford that has bought it, was called Palante at the time. Worked in business and started the Massachusetts Latino Chamber of Commerce. We opened up 3 offices throughout the state of Massachusetts, 2 virtual offices, and we've helped over 2,000 people start and grow their businesses. And my background a lot has to do with business and marketing. And I think that the key to success for our community, whether it's government or not, is to look at from an economic perspective. We have taken the chains off, but now our minds are enslaved to believing a welfare check or a social security check is going to be success. And that's the mindset that I think as elected officials we have to try to change in our communities, particularly our communities of color. And we have made great achievements. And misery loves company, but so does success. I think we've come a long way. And we have to start talking about that. We can only come in group with Puerto Ricans or Latinos or Black and Americans and only start talking about the negatives in our community. There's 50% of our kids dropping out, but there's 50% of them also achieving high school. So we need to celebrate that. And we need to have issues that are concerning to our communities, but we also look at it. So I refuse when the press comes to talk to me about welfare. I don't comment on that. Talk to me about economic development, because that's what I'm about. Talk to me about improving the quality of life of kids' lives. That's what I'm about. So as elected officials, I think it's important as we look at these elections today, how do we change the mindset? Because just like Lourdes said, we have a lot of people that are registered to vote. The challenge is not registering people to vote, it's getting them enthused and excited about voting. And why? Sometimes we say, yeah, go get 20 people out to vote. But why? Why? When you talk to people, say, ¿para qué yo voy a votar? You understand it? I said, porque tú tienes un teléfono de Obama on your phone. ¿Tú me entiendes? Porque tú tienes sección 8. Pero también, you have reached economic success. You're going to pay more taxes, and your taxes may go to the services that you may not be happy with. So that's the reason why we have to vote. And I always place very simple. Recently, we talked to some young people, and I said, there's 2 communities. In my district, 80% of the people that voted were 50 years and over. 2% were under 25 years old. So I said, there's 2 communities. One wants a basketball court, and one wants a senior center. Guess who's going to get it? I talked to young people. They said, the seniors. Bingo. Said, you have to motivate yourself. So you have to get activated. You got to get out to vote. We have to talk to people in practicalities or money. We just recently had a bill in Massachusetts that talked about licensing for people that have been jailed, and now they have to pay a fee to get their license back. Well, they're not paying that fee, and they're going to drive anyways, or they have to go to a clinic, or they have to go back to work. They're going to get stopped. They're going to get another fine, and they're going to get another penalty. And I remember having the discussions with Democrats and Republicans, and they were saying, we don't want to give those the bad people, those people that have done crime, their license. And I said, me neither. We went into the bathroom, and I followed them into the bathroom, and I said, you know what? I agree with you. Me neither. The only problem is that now we got to pay their welfare to the wife and the kids, and we're going to have to put them in jail, and that's $52,000 because they did another fine. And I talked to them in economic terms, and I said to them, listen, if we do not allow them to be taxpayers, we will continue to be paying for their taxes with our taxes. And that changed the mindset of one, who I know he went back to his Republican colleagues and said, wait a minute, jailing people is not the solution. It's $52,000. Putting them in school, we can put 2 kids to college for that kind of price. So it's changing the economic development status, but also the mindset of our communities, but also the folks that are challenging us, not in a disrespectful way, but in a respectful way. Muchas gracias.
Representative Gonzalez. We have 2 representatives. Gonzalez actually. This
And
is
not
great.
family, and not family.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Tú no sabes.
Bueno, yo no sé que mi papá era barbero.
Maybe throughout the day we want to know actually at the end of the day, if at the end of the day you two have found that. Okay, so,
Okay.
and now we have Alan Gomez, City Council Ward 1 from Springfield, Mass. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us up here.
No,
You know,
no,
so-
it's definitely a humbling experience. My name is Adam Gomez. I'm a Springfield City Council member from Ward 1. Ward 1 is like 70% Puerto Rican. I have the benefit of having a mentor named State Representative Carlos Gonzalez. That is my state rep. We like to say he's the people's state rep. How I got involved with being a part of this conversation, I actually started 50 years ago. My mother's parents moved here from Ay Bonito y Cuamo because my grandfather, after a hurricane, couldn't find work. So obviously they migrated here to work on the fields to pick tobacco. And they raised 9 kids in the city of Springfield. So my mother is the youngest of 9. And they all worked on the tobacco field. And my grandmother, she basically, they owned a house that they used to rent out to some of these people on the field. So they used to help out some of these individuals. They used to cook, wash their clothes. My aunts and my mother used to help these people out. Just to the American dream, while most of our ancestors came here and people. And then from there, my mother said, I'm not going to work on the tobacco field the rest of my life. She joined the Army. And when she joined the Army, she met this drill sergeant, which actually became my father. Leading into the situation, because a lot of people think that my father was born and raised in Springfield, and a lot of people know my father, and I'm starting to figure that out once I even go to Chicago, go to Washington, and say, yeah, and then I try to leave his name out of it, but sometimes like, ¿tú eres el hijo de Gumercindo? I was like, yeah, I am actually. So I just want to give the kudos to my father, Gumercindo Gomez, that's right here sitting with me. I was one of those kids that used to follow Dad around, and 30 years ago when our community was really, getting going, organizing, getting involved with politics. We were electing our first school committee member, Puerto Ricans, council members, getting involved and seeing my father and my mother involved in politics. And sometimes I'm going to speak at as a young man. I'm the youngest politician on this panel. I'm 10 months in. I'm very young, but I think I've in the last 10 months, I have evolved and changed, and I still have a lot to learn, and I appreciate every single one of you. Even when I met you yesterday, you've taught me to, ask questions whenever they don't want those questions to be asked. So growing up with my father, running around in Springfield, me and my brother used to run around with him all the time. He founded the Puerto Rican Parade. He founded the flag raising in Springfield, and then I kind of got discouraged from politics, as a kid, because my dad was always running around. My mom was always involved, and they were going to school, night school, balancing all this out, which normally that happens in our community, and we were home, and I found a way to find the family, which was the street, which I always talk about, because if it wasn't for the things that the challenges that I've went through, I would have been here or ever thought that I would ever be an elected official. And I'm going to get to that point. The fact of the matter is that once I went to college and I came back and I started having my children, started thinking to myself, and my legacy of my family, And my mother's grandparents and his parents that actually migrated to find health care, because both of my grandmothers actually passed away of cancer. And in Puerto Rico, you know, that's not really the place you want to be when you have that kind of sickness. So learning and you know, not going too much into it, because I know I'm going to try to be the politician that doesn't overtalk and get the card. And I like to tell myself that I'm not a politician, that I'm just a resident. So when I introduce myself to people, I normally really don't use my title, because I want them to respect me for who I am and the man that I am and the man that I want to be and perceived as. And I got involved with my local, like he said, it was the senior center or the basketball court. Well, I was the guy with the basketball court. He talked to a lot of stuff that I've actually, you know, always been, before a politician, worked with our state rep with. And it got involved with a gentleman, because I'm an organizer with an organization called Neighbor to Neighbor. It's a state organization that we give, try to go into low-income communities and, you know, create power with people that are just not really career politicians like myself. So we went in, we started organizing behind the Justice Reinvestment Act. Justice Reinvestment Act is an omnibus bill. It's 4 different parts to the bill. One of them is the license reform that we just, we changed with the help of our state rep, that now people that are incarcerated, because it's not a secret, mass incarceration is real, and it's affecting black and brown communities. And in black and brown, and I was one of those guys that I got arrested. I made a bad move, you know. When I was 17 years old, you know what they did? They systematically charged me as an adult, so then I can have that stamp on me for the rest of my life. And then I changed my life, and I got involved in politics when I was on the neighborhood board. From being on the neighborhood board, I started to see myself, I guess, come out of the situation I was in, and a lot of kids started to resonate with me because they knew me from being in the neighborhood, working with them, working at the North End Youth Center and stuff. But basically, at the end of the day, I didn't know I was going to run for, I knew I was going to be a politician because it's just in my blood. But at the end of the day, I didn't know when it was going to happen, but it happened fast. And it happened in 87 days. And what I tell young people is that if you're going to hit those doors, you got to hit them hard and not just hit them one time. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to bring power and you want to change people's lives, you need to change yourself first. You have to have faith in God, because my pastor's right there on the right hand side of me. And until I got my faith right, until I got my sound and sometimes people say, Adam, he's a little loco. It's not that. It's just I grew up a little differently. You know, I'm Puerto Rican, but I grew up in the streets of Springfield. And some of these people need somebody to resonate with. And the fact of the matter is that you guys have all the knowledge. And a lot of young people, sometimes they don't want to hear that preaching to the choir. They want to hear it from somebody that they can identify with. So some of these young people that come to your door and need that help, you got to let them in. Because if you don't let them in, you're probably going to pass off another kid just like me that just wanted to go back to school, feed his kids, and try to do the right thing for his community.
I already have a couple of questions written here, but I do want to, try to wheel this back at the presentation that we have this morning, and I want people to start thinking about it. When they were talking about what's happening in Puerto Rico, they were talking about the crisis of Puerto Rico. And one of the things that we have to be very mindful about it is the fact that, are we really ready to deal with the crisis we're going to have here in the United States with all the people that are moving from the island? Why I'm saying this? I know I get a lot of phone calls from kids that said, Miss Montalvo, what I'm going to do now? I have that degree that I worked so hard for. But it's a doctor that came from Puerto Rico, and because he have more experience than I have, they gave him the job. Are we ready to deal with these different crises? The same thing with the teachers and many other folks. Or how about those folks that come from the island, that come to do maintenance work, cleaning, to work in the different stores, Are we ready to deal with this crisis here in the United States? And who are the stakeholders? So with that being said, and this is going back to the couple questions I have, and I believe Mr. Adrian Velasquez wanted me to say that he's from Boston, and the question is, big numbers in community has not translated into political power. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge you face in engaging Puerto Ricans community to become active in politics? So any one of you that want to take a shot, I'm gonna encourage you to try to stay to like a 1 minute, 1 minute and a half if you can.
I'll
I can
start.
spend all day, here, with one
I was
question.
gonna say, I can start,
Okay.
but that's fine.
But, when you go door knocking, the first thing that they will tell you is, I don't vote because politicians, they don't do nothing for us. That's the first thing. And usually politicians knock on the door, and when they heard that answer, most of the politicians say, okay, no problem, see you. That's not right. That's not the right thing to do. I think that the right thing to do is just stay, explain the process, ask questions. Do you have kids? Do they go to school? Do they receive breakfast, free lunch? Do you have Section 8? Do you have state health plan? All those questions, because some of these people, they don't realize that they are getting something back. That they are not voting, but they are getting something back. Something, even if they don't vote. So that's one very important point, that you have to let them know this is for us to improve. If you have more elected officials, you're gonna get more benefit, because that elected official is gonna bring more resources to this community. So it's very, very hard to convince people. Like me, I go one night, it was election day, I went, knock on the door, the wife came out, and I say, hey, we're here because we just, gonna take people out to vote. It's 7 o'clock. Oh, I already went to vote. My husband asked about somebody else here in the list. Oh, that's my husband. He's in the room with my 3 kids, he's watching TV. And I said, watching TV? So I said, can you allow us to go and talk to her? Talk to him. She said, okay. So we go into the room, and there's a guy there watching TV with the 3 kids in PJs. And I said, Gilberto, what are you doing here? He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, listen, it's election day. Come on, just get up. We're trying to elect Board of Education at that time, and we need your vote. He said, but it's raining, it's snowing. And I said, listen, I've been in my house 5 times today to change my sock and my shoes. My toes are frozen. We need your vote. I tickle his foot and I say, get up, let's go and vote. So the guy looked at the wife, she is serious, huh? And the wife said, I think so, just get up and go and vote. We have to do that. We have to. I stay watching when ladies are frying the chicken or cooking, watching. Yet I go door knock. Well, I'm cooking, I'm frying the chicken, my husband, no problem, I stay, I watch your food, I watch your kids, go. Those are things that I've been doing in my community, even though sometimes people won't believe that. Oh, I have to go grocery. Well, guess what? I'll take you to vote, and then I'll take you and I'll leave you over there at the supermarket. What about? Okay. Those are the things that you have to do, because it's very, very hard. Puerto Ricans here, they think that it's not important for them to vote. And it is, and you have to teach them. You have to educate our people. That's our challenge, is that. Just take them to vote, because registering them is not a problem. Okay, no problem. Where I sign. But then the election day, they don't want to go to vote. That's very, very, very hard. But we have to dedicate time for that.
Okay, Jossie.
Thank you. So a couple of things. One is that, a couple of people here talked about door knocking, and definitely that's the way to win a race. I knocked on doors for about 4 months for my first election. And the important part about that is that when I decided to run, I was told, here's the list of super voters, go hit them up. And I said, no, I'm going to knock on every single door. I don't care if they're a super voter. I don't care if they're not registered to vote. And so that was different, because people were used to only going to those folks that were already registered to vote, and it's this like smart campaigning that they call. So what stemmed from that, of course, is that it wasn't just about educating the voters, it was also registering people to vote at that moment, and following up with them. And my ward is 70% Latino, and it's very different in terms of Precinct A and Precinct B. Precinct A is very heavily Latino, Precinct B is not, and guess which one does better at the polls? I don't have to tell you, you know the answer to that. So what I ended up doing was I would recruit people that were volunteers for my campaign, including my wife. And when she came to knock on doors with me and she realized that there were so many people that didn't even know the basics of local government. They didn't know what a city council was. They didn't know what our role was. They just know about the mayor, right? That's all they care about. ¿Quién es el alcalde? ¿Quién es el alcalde? And so what stemmed from that was my wife actually, and I want to share this with you quickly because it's something that everyone can replicate in their own communities. My wife was so taken back about the lack of educated voters that we were encountering that she decided to come up with this thing called Politics 101. And she did 8 sessions in the community. Everything was volunteers that were coming in as speakers. Of course, I was one of the speakers. I didn't have an option to say no. And it was just through donations. You know, we would, one night it would be a pizza, another night it would be, you know, whatever, Chinese food and so on and so forth, because we all know food is important in our culture. It's something that brings people together, right? And so she literally did these 8 sessions, and it went from, you know, the basics of local office to, you know, the statewide elections, to why is it important to vote, to parliamentary procedure. I mean, like if you look at a city council meeting and you have no idea what's happening, but the reality is that we're making decisions about you as a resident, and if you get the basketball court or you get the senior center, right? And so it's something that anyone can replicate. My wife wasn't an expert at this. She just brought community together and made this happen. So from that, it just kind of stemmed into other groups and into even Springfield. Some folks from Neighbor to Neighbor got really involved. So it's something that, you know, I know we don't have a lot of time here today, but I'm happy to speak to anyone about the specifics. But it's something that was different for people because they were used to, if they knocked on the door and they were told, no, I'm not registered to vote, it's like, okay, have a great day. And that was the end of the conversation. The other piece of it is that it's very hard, and you have all heard it as voters, it's very hard for us once we're in office that we need to make sure that we go back to people, right? And it's hard because we need to be everywhere, anywhere, right? And we also need to have our own lives. I work full time. I work at Holyoke Community College. So what do? I try to, and I know these folks do as well, we try to really make sure that we have moments where we're engaging with the community on different levels, and we try to go back to those communities because we've all heard it. We only see politicians when it's campaign season, right? And there's a reason for that because people are looking for votes. But the reality is if you have a strong foundation in terms of your supporters and your constituents, you're campaigning all the time, anywhere, right? So just to keep that in mind and think about ways in which you can all be part of that process.
So if anybody else would like to.
Just real quickly.
I'll just add real quick. I think it's messaging. I really think it's messaging. Explaining to people why they need to go out to vote is very difficult to some degree, but we haven't really prepared a concrete messaging. So when I go to seniors, I know what the messaging is for seniors. When I go to young people, I have a message specifically for young people. And when I talk to higher income communities, I have a messaging for them. And also the folks that have voted in the past and now feel disenfranchised and don't want to come back. So I have a messaging. So messaging is very clear and important. If you look at marketing, they spend a lot of dollars, $1 million campaigns, and it's all 30 seconds. And that you have to have that 30-second messaging because if not, you've lost that person. So yeah, getting out the people on that election day is great, but enticing them to want to be out there on that election day is more important. I think the messaging is key and important, and I think those perfect examples, particularly when it comes to streets. I can tell you my 261 streets in my community, how many people are registered and how many people come out to vote. So I challenge folks and I say, do you know on Clayton Street, this is the amount of people and only 60 of you come out to vote? There's 130 people that are not coming to vote. In one building, you have less than 6% of the people coming out to vote. So you specifically tell them where they're at, why it's important to vote, and why they're not voting specifically, particularly on messaging.
Okay.
Just
Yes.
real quick, everything that's been said thus far, you know, we do a lot of consistent revisiting of voters, talking to folks about where things are, what they know, what they see. And that to me is the way that you get people engaged and keep people engaged is that constant touchback. It's that constant rechecking with folks. It's not only the senior center or the basketball court. It's Aponte, the basketball court needs new nets. Aponte, we need a domino table at the senior center. It's that coming back and keeping people engaged, because getting them there is probably half the battle. Keeping them there is the real challenge. And they will punish you if you don't. You know, we've had an election last Tuesday in Rhode Island where the majority leader of the House of Representatives, who elected official for 26 years, hadn't had an opponent in the last 10 years, was beat by a first-time school teacher from out of nowhere. And part of that is that you didn't touch back to, you got very disconnected from the base. You know, we tell young people all the time, there are two kinds of citizens. There are those people who are passive in their democracy and those people that are active in their democracy. And we ask them, how many of you are political? None of them raise their hands. Yo le hago la pregunta, ¿cuántos se bañaron hoy? How many of you took a shower? How do you think the water got there? It is a process, and there has to be some sense of relevance. The other part is that people don't live one-dimensional lives. People are in church. People are in unions. People are in sports teams. People are chasing their kids from soccer to ballet. And if it is not relevant to decisions that get made in government to all the facets of their life, then it's easy to discard it and say, I got to go get my son to soccer practice. I'll talk to you later. And like the representative said, mira, ven, yo te doy el pong. I'll take you there. And it is the way that you engage people. But I would say equally important, and perhaps more important, is that connection that tethers them back to that community and to the decisions that get made in that community, and that keeping their leadership accountable.
Thank you.
I can only, hold on, I gotta add to that. I gotta talk about like more, it's on an organizational standpoint when organizing, it's GOTV and your volunteers that help you. Those are the people you have to really, that's family, because those are the people that are gonna keep you sound. And if your team isn't tight, you're gonna fall through the cracks, and that's what's important. When you, and sometimes it's hard to knock on every single door again, but you can phone bank. That's something, and then you have to phone bank in different languages. So in my constituent base, I have people that speak Russian, I have people that speak Spanish, obviously, but we have to be able to have those volunteers also that are gonna stay close to you, because those are your first and foremost, your supporters. They're gonna be there, whatever. You're basically your personal army. You know what I mean? Your lieutenants, I guess I learned that from Dad. Your lieutenants, anybody that loves you are the first ones, and then from there, your messaging, they're gonna carry your message. Those are your ambassadors. Those are your people that, regardless, when they see me, they know I'm Carlos Gonzalez, and when they see Carlos, they know he's Adam Gomez. Just to give you an explanation, it doesn't really matter, but it has to be on point. And then when it comes to your GOTV, because we can register everybody. Of course, we have different organizations coming into our neighborhoods registering us to vote, but GOTV, whoever doesn't know, is get out the vote. You have to have your buses. You have to have, like she said, watch the people, watch their kids. You have to figure it out. There's a system to the madness. But once you get it and you have your niche, continue doing that. And sometimes they just want to say, hey, how have you been? It doesn't have to be really, they just want to know that that you know who they are, because they know who you are. That's it. Easy.
And let me add to that. In the state of Connecticut, something that the Secretary of the State's office, and I'm the one conducting these things across the state, we're doing a couple things to try to get to, especially the Latino citizens and the Puerto Ricans that live in the state of Connecticut. And one of them is we're hosting town hall meetings, and what we do is we do bilingual. We also have the crayons and those papers that kids can go ahead and they can. But the difference is, if it's a local election, we're gonna have local candidate faces over there for these kids to paint. Because you know what? You give me something, I'll throw it away. But if I'm with my grandbaby, you give something to her and I throw it away, that kid va a tirar una pataleta. Okay, forget it. I have to put it in my refrigerator. And that's one of the things that I have learned. The other thing now, I'm gonna blow your mind, okay? I'm doing what is called speed date your candidate. People love it because you have little groups that they can come feel comfortable talking, okay? And then you have the candidates going around the room so they can talk to each one of them, feeling comfortable. And I think those are two of the things that you might wanna, think about it. So, and I don't wanna take too much time because we have about 4 more questions. The next question is, religion is very important to many Puerto Ricans, and yet politically, it is difficult at times to engage our religious brothers and sisters to vote and play an active role in the voting process. What are your thoughts?
Well, my challenge is that I come from a religious family already, but the thing is, not necessarily that I practice, at the church that my family goes to, but you visit all the churches as best as possible. I attend a church that we're like 1,000 strong. We have to separate into 3 different services, and sometimes I don't go every Sunday. But the thing is, I visit all the churches because at the time, in your capacity, you've become a member of all those churches. We have a black church in our neighborhood that I visit a lot, and we have Catholic. We have different denominations, and I have a great relationship not only with Christian denomination, but a Muslim faith base, because we have Latinos that are Muslim. That are changing. We're all Latino, but we all believe in something. But at the same time, you still have to give these individuals their space, no matter what it is that I believe. And one thing across the table, they've always said, you don't talk about religion and you don't talk about politics, because you already know how that ends. But the fact of the matter is, what you can preach is love. And in the end, if you're about the people, regardless about religion, they're going to know that you love them and they love you back. So, regardless of their faith, just give them the opportunity just to feel a part of. And that's it.
And for me, my experience has been a little bit different because running as an out candidate, we know that there is a lot of homophobia in our Latino culture, especially in the religious community. And so I have had to look at myself as an agent of change, look at myself as someone who's trying to educate people consistently about the importance of the diversity that we have within our own community, and really breaking down barriers and breaking down stereotypes. And when I'm speaking to some of my older constituents, usually they're the ones that I have to break down some more barriers with in terms of this topic. And I say something about my wife. You can see they're like jolted, but then they meet her and they fall in love with her, so it doesn't matter. But but it's it's breaking down that barrier and reminding them, what do? You have family members, you have people that you work with, you have and so at the end of the day, if we're all about the same thing, which is how do we improve our community regardless of what we look like, who we love, we're all capable of being those educational tools for each other. So for me, it's been it's been a different experience than, for example, Adam, because sometimes I have to kind of break down that barrier. And there's certain groups, unfortunately, that are about 50 years behind. And instead of just shutting those folks out, I take the opportunity to take it as a challenge and make it into a teachable moment, and it's worked well for me.
Well, I would say that if you're a good politician, we'll go through. It doesn't matter. You can find a person that will say, no, my religion, I don't get involved. But you will always find a way. You'll sit down, you will always find a way. I will always remember una viejita que siempre decía, Dios pone reyes y quita reyes.
That's right.
Always say that. And that's in the Bible. So I learned that. And when I go to places and they say, I don't get involved, I always say, well, you have to remember that the Bible says.
Quick.
So
there's a thin line.
That always works. Always works.
Somebody else want to make?
Yeah. I
Question that I think is really interesting. Why is the black community does it better with the churches? Is because they're largely Protestant and we're largely Catholic, which is more authoritarian, or is it something else?
I think that I can respond to that. When I first got elected, that was my thing. I said at that time, 20 years ago, I didn't see a lot of Latinos that would go to church, different churches, didn't get involved. But I did say I did see some African American. And what I find out later on is, it's a lot of money involved. So, it's a lot of money involved, and the pastors and the ministers, they go to the Capitol, they got involved because my community need money, and that's how they're gonna bring the money and get it involved. So that's what I start saying to my people, hey, listen, you know, you have a church, you have a lot of problems in your community, get involved, vote, go to the Capitol, and because it's money involved for all communities. So right now I'm saying that the African American community are very, very involved because that's how they bring money and resources to their community.
So, and I'm gonna ask, please, don't raise questions, thank you. Please write down the questions because I have a series of questions that I really wanna complete for those folks that been waiting for an answer, okay? So thank you. I'll give you a couple seconds at the end if you wanna elaborate more on her question. So the next question is, how do we teach Puerto Rican youth to have political participation and engagement at a local level so they can grow? Who would like to start?
I'll just say, my election was about young people. It was bringing them together. And if you saw a lot of the folks that campaigned with me, they were young people. They were under the age of 25. And I think what's important is utilizing those same statistics that I spoke about earlier. Is look at, they're incarcerating young people at $52,000 when you can't pay for your college and you have a debt after you come out of college. So we need to get involved. I said, look at these job opportunities that are available out there, and you guys are not part of the fabric because some of you are not making it in school. And the reason that we all have to come together about the importance of getting involved is that you guys own this country. Because of the demographics, and we look at our community, particularly Latinos, we're the big, large segment. The young people are the large segment of our communities of color. And if you utilize your strength, not only will you have those basketball courts, you'll have the education, you'll have those opportunities to voice out your opinions, but I think the most important part that I always tell to folks that have been before me and led me to this thing, and I tell folks that are behind me after coming up the ladder, is that young people don't want to be led. They want to be guided. So don't try to bring them in to tell them what to do. Ask them, how do we get it done? And that was the engaging factor that I thought was helpful to me as I got young people involved to be part of my campaign and got really energized about getting out the vote.
And just to piggyback on what Carlos was talking about, you know, I always get really annoyed when people say, oh, the future leaders. It's like, they're not the future leaders, they're already the leaders. And to me, I mean, I'm 39, so I'm still considered on the younger side. But, you know, when you look at politics, people are usually used to white older men. And so I always use that as part of the conversation that I'm having with younger people, is that, you know, when you look at society in general, it's not white older men. So again, we go back to the political representation that we talked about. You know, what do you want to do next? Are you, you know, there's a very fine line between activism and politics. And sometimes it's seen, and I'll speak for myself, I was an activist before I was a politician, and sometimes that's held against me. And so it's like, you can't be both, and that's not the reality. But we see it more and more with our younger people, that if they're very passionate about something now, then we have to make that grow. And so it's, like Carlos said, it's not, you know, leading them, it's involving them, and they are already the leaders, they're not the future leaders. The other piece is that if we look at ways in which we can, you know, bring it to what are, for folks that are already kind of in activist roles, what are those areas that are important to them in terms of social justice issues? Those are things that are not talked about. They're not talked about in chambers and city council, they're not talked about at the state house, because a lot of them are taboos. But it's up to all of us to have that conversation. And so I think that that's really important when we're looking at the younger folks, because they do want to have a voice. You look at what's happening in Puerto Rico right now with, you know, the people that are on the streets, you know, talking about things that the press doesn't want to talk about. It happens here in the US, it happens with the Black Lives Matter movement. And it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not. The reality is there's conversations that are happening right now that were not happening before. And you can attest to that whatever you want. It could either be that people are fed up, it could be that people feel that they want to, you know, have a seat at the table, whatever that case is. But think about ways in which you can support those conversations instead of shutting them down. Because there's a lot of shutting down going on. and we don't need that. We need more conversations to be happening, and we need more openness to be happening. Look at the fact that in our communities of color, the oppression and the racism that is even within our communities of color. We talk to Latinos who are like, ese negro yo no lo quiero aquí, right? Right? And so we have to have those difficult conversations. We can sugarcoat everything we want to, but if we're not having those conversations at the end of the day, guess who's having them about us?
Amen.
I have three very important questions that have to do with, a lot of what we were talking about that will, the contents of this doesn't have to do with what we discussed this morning, but these are more direct questions. So, and I'm gonna put the three of them, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with State Representative Carlos Gonzalez, and we're gonna go to the right, and then we will come around and we will wrap it up because we have about, give and take, 5 more minutes, and that's it. So the question is how local politics or local elected officials can help or input into the situation that is happening in Puerto Rico, including services for the most recent arrivals, in our areas here in the U.S. And, some folks that are already elected officials are experiences that they have only 1 or 2 people that can voice out for these folks that are coming, from the island. And how do we add Puerto Rico to the political agenda here in the United States?
Let me just say, a long time ago when I was at the University of Massachusetts, there was an issue that they were trying to get more Latinos to come involved. And what they did, they brought a whole bunch of Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico. And what ended up happening, there was a big clash between the Puerto Ricans, los blanquitos, que venían de Puerto Rico, y nosotros, los trigueñitos que estaban aquí. Big battles, same issue. Let's bring it back to reality. And I think that what's happening in Puerto Rico, you look at it, is, you ever heard of urban renewal? Happened in our communities? That's what's happening in the island of Puerto Rico. It's the urban renewal, and they're trying to take out the people, take out the process, and rebuild it, but not for the people that are there, for the people that are coming in the future. But anyways, going back to a specific question, as we look at the challenges, I started the Massachusetts Latino Chamber of Commerce because I believe that I'm not a big fan of social service. I'm a big fan of social economic service. I'm a believer that, education starts at home. I believe that give you a hand up, not a handout. And the reason that is because if we keep telling folks, you can have this for free, there's no reason to incentivize yourself, to educate yourself, prepare yourself, or better yourself. So I think that it's about starting your own business, creating economies within ourselves, supporting each other. And I look at even issues like this. We're here in Holyoke, great. Any conference, anything that we did at the Latino Chamber of Commerce, I refuse to do them in certain locations that belong to the state or the city. Why? Because I couldn't bring my local vendors. I couldn't bring the Latino folks to come and be part of cooking. I couldn't make them be part of the arrangements. So how do we create that economy within ourselves that makes it more prosperous for us to keep our local economy? So the people that come from Puerto Rico, what I'm telling them and what we've done with some of them now is, listen, they're getting to start their own business because if they can't get a job, create your own. But that's just one instance. There's many other ways that it's impacting us in our community.
So I mentioned briefly before that other than being a city councilor here in Holyoke, I work full-time at Holyoke Community College, a fabulous institution here in the city. And I've been there 10 years. I'm a senior academic counselor, so I do academic advising all day long. And what I'm seeing is a lot of Puerto Ricans that are coming from the island because of the economic difficulties that I think you mentioned a little earlier before, Lourdes, people who have degrees, who, have a nursing license, who have, who are engineers, who, because they have to come here and start from scratch because they don't have the language, we are starting them off all over again. And so it's this kind of phenomena of, we have this intellectual drain that's happening from the island, which is very painful to watch. I mean, I did all my schooling and my bachelor's degree at the University of Puerto Rico. So, I mean, I'm a proud product of Puerto Rico and the education system there. And what I'm seeing now is these scenarios where we're seeing folks that are starting from scratch, because the economic difficulties have pushed them this way, and they've lost the career they had. They're starting from scratch. So reaching out to that specific group, I think, is really important. There's a lot of folks in New England that are in that category, and they're falling through the cracks. They're falling through the cracks because they don't meet these like little bubbles of, you know, what Carlos was talking about in terms of this assistance or that assistance. So I think it's important to recognize that. And second, educating our own constituents that are Puerto Rican of what's happening on the island. People don't know. People don't know what the aftermath is of La Junta. People don't understand that pension retirement systems are draining out, and those are our aunts and uncles and grandparents that are being affected by that. But because we're here and we're comfortable, we don't recognize it. So I think it's important that we all take the time to educate people about whatever we know. The internet is there for a reason. It's free and it's available to all of us. So I think that's also something, well, you know what I mean. I think that's also a big responsibility for us as well, is making that connection to the island and the people that are here.
Thank you.
Well, we know that we have a huge problem, but I think that how we can help and how we're gonna start, this is the organization. This is a way. This is just only the beginning. And if we stick together, we're gonna be able to help our people. One important key is to be together and work together. And if we work together, we will be successful. Now, we have to educate our people. And we have to stop saying, well, that happened because one party and the other party and the other party. No, that's our problem. That's not about one party or the other. This is about us. And I think that if we stick together and we work together, we have to help ourselves here first in the United States, because we got a problem here. We're not together. And that's one thing that we have to start doing to work together. I also want to say something that here in this room, I have a couple of people from Connecticut, people that really, they were very responsible for changes in the city of Hartford. Puerto Ricans, they got together. It didn't care about the other people talking about, yeah, I don't like your hair, I don't like your style. But we did get together. And I would like for them people to stand up, because I want to give all of us a round of applause of our people from Connecticut, from Hartford. I think that we kind of forgot one over there. We didn't forget. He didn't stand up. That's my other half.
Dale,
But, yeah. So that's the way, that's how we can do changes, working together. And that's how we were able to change a lot of things in Hartford. At the end, you know, we kind of went kind of low and we lost our mayor. But we're going to bring back a Puerto Rican in that position, hopefully.
Amen.
Thank you.
Two quick things. We need to figure out how we streamline the process of import and export. There's a lot of great things going on in our communities. There are a lot of talent, a lot of innovation. How do we export best practices to the island to stabilize it over the long term and to sustain it? There was some great conversation about sustainable energy, thinking about consumption, thinking about how there's a lot of great work going on in our communities around affordable housing and how we make that sustainable. Let's take those best practices and figure out how to transfer them and implement them there. The second part is the import part. You know, it's a real interesting dynamic that's taking place. We are seeing, for the first time in this nation's history, in a real formal way, citizen refugees. These are folks who are essentially living the trauma of refugees, but who bear the citizenship of this nation. So we have to hold our bureaucracy accountable. You know, we deal with that stuff about credentialing. There's no way that someone who in Puerto Rico was a registered nurse, a paramedic, was a doctor, would have to come here and start from scratch. We need to be able to figure out systems to credential people, accommodate them here, and create that process. You know what? My life is not going to be any worse because another professional comes in to compete with me. That actually makes it better, and we need to make those things. But understand, it's like to be a citizen refugee is a fairly new dynamic in this nation, and we need to understand that and make sure that those who, you know, those folks who are on the other side of the window when somebody comes in for licensure, for accreditation, for this, understands that these are, you know, these are not folks who are unknown to us. So that's part of our task here, but it's also, it implicit in that is that we maintain strong lines of communications with our counterparts on the island.
I'm going to be brief. I think it's important that within our own communities that we establish our relationships with, you know, with the people that apply those services, like veteran services, with housing services, tenant associations, because some of these people, if we're not having the conversation, having like kind of like a welcoming center or a formed task force, and then opening the lines within our own state, and even if it's the lines with the what we created with the conversation of Puerto Ricans with Alianza Massachusetts, I know that I can call Worcester, I can call Vanessa, and I can, if there's a family that outreach to us that don't know where to go, if we're not communicating within ourselves, or I can call Adrian in Boston, you know, we're really doing ourselves a disservice, because most of these people aren't necessarily coming to our own communities, but our families are going to different places, and they just need that kind of help. So, when you go back home, find out, if you don't know, where the services are and where they lie and where's the money going. You know, because it's very important that as a council member that I'm only one person, but I can't make Voltron work without my arms or my head or my legs. Or I can only be the brain, or I can think that I have a great idea, but if we're not conversing with one another and understanding what are the challenges when we get here or when they get here, and where we can streamline them and put them in the right path, we're just putting them in a world of hurt. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. State Representative Gonzalez have a remark.
Well, thank you all of you for coming. Please remember, November elections, they are very, very important. And also, I don't know if you all know, we having a trip on October 9th to Washington. It's also about a very important issue. It's about Oscar Lopez. And I think that all over, we're gonna have buses for, you know, that are going to Washington. So please, just try to get in touch with people that know about this. How can we register, you know, to go to Washington? Is very, very important. That's one of the issues that, other than having a huge problem in Puerto Rico, we also have, it's about an obligation for us. It's like we have to be there October 9th for Oscar Lopez. We want Obama to release Oscar Lopez. I think it's time for him to be released.
So thank you everybody, and I thank you to the panelists, and please don't forget, get involved, stay engaged, and get involved.